So good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to give you an update on some of the things we've been doing here in the city of Frisco to help with traffic incident management. And what I'm going to talk to you about is give you an update. Some of you may have seen or prior presentations about SAFER. Just this will be an update kind of on where we are, but SAFER is our situational awareness for emergency response. We can go next slide. And so how is SAFER using TIM technologies to improve post-crash care? We use crowdsourced data. We have an integration that's called closest to dispatching that we're using. We're using routing for our EMS responders as they're approaching a scene using live traffic data. And we're getting ready to get some equipment where we can do rail crossing blockages and detect those. And then lastly, work zone data exchange that I'll talk about. Next slide. So on our closest to dispatching, what we do here is we know the actual locations of all of our first responders. We know the call location on where they need to go. And then our dispatchers are presented then with travel time estimates for the various resources that might be needed on that call. So for example, if you need an engine and a medic to go, the dispatcher will be presented, here's the status of where everyone's at. So rather than a traditional districting type response, it's going to grab who can get there, who should be able to get there in the shortest amount of time. We did implement this back in 2017, and you can see in that first year, we shaved nearly a minute off of our response time for those particular calls where it was utilized. And we continue to use that system to this day. Next slide. This we started a couple of years ago now. So once those responders are identified and sent to the call, then we're trying to give them then the optimum route on how to get there that takes into account the real-time traffic conditions. So if you've got some backups or something somewhere on a major arterial, this will try and account for that. And then you can see here on our screen over kind of in the bottom right, the various calls that are active, but it's also then giving the first responders, they see the same screen inside their vehicle, and also our dispatchers. You can see the time estimate on when they should be arriving there, and that changes in dynamically as they go. And that's been really helpful for us and, being able to help our dispatchers know when they're actually going to be arriving on scene. Next slide. This is something you may have heard us talk about previously. We're working here in Frisco to detect when our railroad crossings are actually blocked, because they're active. And in 2020, our MPO here, the North Central Texas Council of Governments, had a grant for traffic incident management. Frisco was awarded a grant under that program, and we had proposed to use TrainFo. And so this is a product we're getting ready to actually install this coming September. It's equipment that can be placed in the public right of way. It doesn't have to be within the railroad right of way. So it makes that a lot easier. And it's using acoustics to know when the crossing is active. So even though we have quiet zone here in Frisco, you'll still have the bells, the tones and things that get detected there. What this is going to enable us to do, that closest to dispatching, when it's trying to find who can get there in the shortest amount of time, it's accounting for roadway blockages, for work zones and things of that nature. And what we'll be able to do when a crossing is blocked, create a dynamic road closure on that particular road. And it's going to then change that response time and give the dispatcher some other choices, or, they'll probably wind up choosing another unit to go respond to the call. And one of the neat things about this is the North NCT 911, which is our regional 911 communications provider that support 40 of the emergency communication centers in our region. They're a project partner in this. They're looking to see the results and the difference that we can make here. And if it can prove out and work well, that's something that they want to help support to roll out across the wider DFW Metroplex here. Next slide. And then our MPO just late last year and the beginning of this year wanted to encourage all of our cities to become part of the work zone data exchange and get feeds implemented for that. And so Frisco was awarded one of those grants, and we're currently working on getting this implemented. And I think at first thought, we're thinking, okay, this is for work zones, right? It's a standard the US DOT has helped develop, and it's really to improve the workers, the safety of the workers in the work zones to bring awareness, but that can also include first responders, helping people, all of us as drivers, and then thinking to the future when we think about automated vehicles. And so what we envision doing with this is when this gets stood up later this year, integrating that with Safer. So our dispatchers, and when the first responders are on scene, and let's say they need to block lanes 1 and 2, they can radio that in. They can put it into our Safer program, but then it can also get put into the Causeway One Network application, which then is taking that data and sharing it out, whether it's to Waze, Google, DriveWise, you name it, the various navigation systems that are used today can get that information. So, a lot of times as our travelers are being notified when there's a crash and they're going to encounter that upstream, and now we can get some more information maybe on what lanes or how many lanes are blocked as they're approaching that scene. And then hopefully just, being able to give a further improvement to the safety of our first responders when they're out there on scene. Next slide. And if you have interest in learning more about Safer, I just would encourage you to use the QR code there. It can take you to our city website. There's over 30 plus applications that are integrated within our Safer platform that we're using. And if you would have any, I know there's an opportunity for questions later. And so I will turn it back over to you, Jim.